after 18 months of the Chinese finally updating their numbers repetitively, and they stop, they're all over it saying they stopped buying. And I said, that's just a lie. I've been saying that on your show and everyone else. They're not stopping buying. In fact, these export numbers prove it. But I think people need to understand that this is an all-out rush. And when you see the effort that they are going to, like going through Latin America and paying double what everyone else will pay for unrefined doré in silver and silver concentrate, to ship it home at tons per, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of this stuff, the cost of shipping it and refining it is, they're okay with that. They've been mining gold that has been very uneconomical for a long time, using our trade imbalance. And so to them, it's money. And to them, they see the big picture. They think in terms of decades. Now, the BRICS has been going on for 18 years. This is not just a trend that is just beginning. And like you said at the onset here, things are spinning faster and faster and faster. I use that toilet paper roll analogy all the time. They are spinning faster, 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 faster. Look, we got this massive BRICS meeting in October, and the admission of Dilma Rousseff, Sergei Glaziev, and Putin that they've agreed in principle to a new currency. That is, a special meeting is being called for ratification of this in September in China, with the intention of perhaps rolling it out in October. What does that do to the system? And then you have the biggest election of our career, and let alone this knucklehead Tim Walz, who's now the VP choice for Harris. I left Minnesota because of this guy. And this guy's left of left. This guy destroyed Minnesota. This guy let the city burn down. There's just so much happening, and it's going faster and faster and faster and faster. You have to keep your eye on the ball. And that is the fact that the biggest money in the world is doing everything they can to accumulate commodities and be opaque about it.
In a stunning revelation, Andy Schectman exposes how countries like China are secretly hoarding gold and silver to potentially undermine the US economy. He highlights that China is buying unrefined silver at double the market rate and manipulating prices through COMEX. This covert operation is backed by customs data, revealing that the People's Bank of China continued buying gold even when they claimed to have stopped. Schectman emphasizes that this secrecy and manipulation are part of a larger strategy to accumulate commodities while masking their true intentions. As the BRICS nations prepare for a new gold-backed currency, the implications for the global financial system are profound. Schectman points out that the largest commercial banks in the world are being targeted in this high-stakes game. With the biggest money in the world quietly accumulating assets, the stage is set for a major shift.
Right around the end of July, we saw, in fact, COMEX gold futures were actually a little bit higher than the Shanghai prices. And that fell in line with what they were trying to do. And look, first of all, just to recap some of the things I've talked about before about this, before I tell you what I read about it really being false and evidence of it, is that for my whole career, everyone said, you can't believe what they're telling you, that they're, it's been known that they're the largest producers in the world, and they make or produce between 300 and 500 metric tons a year. You just add that up for the last 25 years, and you're well above the numbers of 2,600 metric tons or whatnot that they tell us. But most of my career, Donnegan, I've been doing this for 34 years, and I can remember vividly most of my career, everyone saying the numbers that the Chinese are telling us, and usually it was stuck at 1,200 metric tons for, for a long time. You can't believe it. They're not updating the numbers. You have the IMF saying their numbers are fugazi. You have the head of research for Bank of Montreal said their numbers are massively understated, and they are understated. They have been. Why would they want to be forthright? In particular, when we see the new unit settlement currency that has been evidently, according to Dilma Rousseff, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, agreed on in principle, 40% gold backing. Why would they want to be honest about how much gold they're buying? Before I get there, let's just look at the fact I've done 2 interviews recently with mining executives and talked with both of them about China buying things up quietly. Now, I've said that the commercial banks that work on behalf of the PBOC have been buying gold incessantly and not reporting it to the IMF in their dealings with the refineries in South Africa and in Switzerland. That's been obvious. I think they're doing things in a very covert manner. But what I learned recently is that the Chinese are going through Latin America right now and buying up all the silver concentrate and the silver doré bars, unrefined, all of it, buying up, paying out as much as twice what the Western bidders are bidding, paying twice what they will bid, bringing it home and refining it at home, where buying all of this stuff in unrefined form it doesn't have an effect on the price. It's not coming off of an exchange. So they are going to great lengths to mask what they're buying and how much they're buying. They're using the manipulation on COMEX and the LBMA to mask what they're buying and how much they're buying. They would have no vested interest, really, at all. It would be stupid to tell everyone how much gold that they are trying to buy. And really, I mean, how much more forthright are we, where we haven't updated the numbers at Fort Knox, or had them audited rather, since 1953, and turned down Ron Paul every time he asks to have it audited. So it doesn't make any sense, to be honest about it. But there was an article that I read, and I think it was from Koos Jansen. He's a hell of a researcher. And he said, because the bullion banks take care of the gold transport for the PBOC, the shipments from London to Beijing are disclosed in UK customs data. The customs data reveals that the PBOC continued to buy gold in May. When it communicated to the market, it discontinued buying at it. And, you know, so this is the thing. You can see the efforts they are going or taking, even going as far as decreasing the arbitrage premium on the Shanghai Gold Exchange to really make it look like they stopped buying it. But in essence, what did it do? It drove the price down. And the Western media, who's so stupid as it pertains to telling us what's really happening, well, they were all over, you know, Reuters and all of the news channels were all over the fact that Chinese stopped buying gold, and that's got to be bad for the gold market. You never hear anything positive. It's always, even if it is positive, it's spun with a, you know, a little bit of whipped crap on top of it for dessert. And they never, ever are bullish about gold, because it is the antithesis of the system. So the media, after 18 months of the Chinese finally updating their numbers repetitively, and they stop, they're all over it saying they stopped buying. And I said, that's just a lie. I've been saying that on your show and everyone else. They're not stopping buying. In fact, these export numbers prove it. But I think people need to understand that this is an all-out rush. And when you see the effort that they are going to, like going through Latin America and paying double what everyone else will pay for unrefined doré in silver and silver concentrate, to ship it home at tons per, you know, I mean, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of this stuff, the cost of shipping it and refining it is, they're okay with that. They've been mining gold that has been very uneconomical for a long time, using our trade imbalance. And so to them, it's money. And to them, they see the big picture. They think in terms of decades. Now, the BRICS has been going on for 18 years. This is not just a trend that is just beginning. And like you said at the onset here, things are spinning faster and faster and faster. I use that toilet paper roll analogy all the time. They are spinning faster, 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 faster. Look, we got this massive BRICS meeting in October, and the admission of Dilma Rousseff, Sergei Glaziev, and Putin that they've agreed in principle to a new currency. That is, a special meeting is being called for ratification of this in September in China, with the intention of perhaps rolling it out in October. What does that do to the system? And then you have the biggest election of our career, and let alone this knucklehead Tim Walz, who's now the VP choice for Harris. I left Minnesota because of this guy. And this guy's left of left. This guy destroyed Minnesota. This guy let the city burn down. There's just so much happening, and it's going faster and faster and faster and faster. You have to keep your eye on the ball. And that is the fact that the biggest money in the world is doing everything they can to accumulate commodities and be opaque about it. This is not about transparency yet. Once they've accumulated everything, then we move to a new system, as Zoltan Pozar calls it, Bretton Woods 3, that will be all about transparency. But until we show our hand, there's no reason to be honest. It's bluff, 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 because otherwise you get traded out of your position as fast as information disseminates around the world nowadays on social media. it would certainly not be in their best interest to tell the world what their ambitions are. In fact, anything but that. This is a high stakes game. This is about repositioning, and there's no reason to believe that any of them will be honest about it in their aspirations. But the reason they're not bitching, those countries, is because they're accumulating. They're using this against us. They're using it against us. And, I think that the manipulation that we see, the drive-by shooting that we've seen on COMEX over the last couple of weeks, where they knock the price down, and you can only imagine they fleece the managed money. You can only imagine how much managed money selling has been then switched into commercial bank buying. This is the rinse, wash, and repeat cycle they do all the time. They suck in all of the hedge funds and the speculative buying by the managed money. They absorb it, and once it slows down, they step on the price, and it flips. And then they create all of the margin calls, and people sell. And look, these hedge funds have investors that they have to appease, so they're not in it to absorb pain. They're in it to make a profit and get out when it flips the other way. But that's what's happening, and this is being used against us because, like I said, these countries are incentivized, coordinated, wealthy, sophisticated, and they know this is how you beat us. You don't beat us in a war with missiles and airplanes and aircraft carriers. You beat us by blowing up the biggest commercial banks on the planet because they're stupid enough to be naked short massive amounts. And that will happen at some point. I'll tell you what else I think is going to happen. I think there's going to come a time where there's going to be something that wakes up the very, very, very wealthy people in this country. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see it. The order sizes that we're doing now are really big. We don't have the massive amount of volume that we saw in other parts of the last 3 years, where, the silver squeeze and everyone just getting a piece of it to make a whole bunch of money. It's not sexy enough. The instant gratification is not there in gold and silver yet for those people. And so they've moved on to things like Bitcoin and Nvidia and Apple. Okay, I get it. Fine. But what we have seen is very, very substantial orders. And I swear to you, I've said this before, I believe there's going to come a time where you get some very wealthy people. I don't know how many billionaires are there in the United States now. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? I don't know, a lot. You're going to get a couple of very wealthy people that say, give me every single thing you have right now, I'll take it all. And you're going to get people that will do that across the country, and bang, it'll all be gone. And I mean that, because there will be a wake-up call, and you can see it. You can see it with what happened on Monday morning. And again, I always say you'll wake up to a new reality on Monday morning. Shocking it happened on Monday morning. Shocking that all of these insiders sold their shares leading up to the biggest one-day drop in the history of the Dow Jones. And the razor's edge that we are living on, where the Bank of Japan says they're going to raise rates a little bit, and as a result, you start to blow things up. The biggest one-day decline on the Japanese Nikkei, the biggest point drop ever in the history of the Dow Jones. And many of the, like, for example, the worst day in 57 years in Taiwan, the biggest drop in South Korea since 2008. This wasn't just isolated. And now Japan says, well, we're not going to raise rates anymore. Everything, it'll be okay. It'll go back to normal. We're that close. And as we said a few weeks ago, 1/8 of an inch separated chaos and calm. Do we really think it's going to be calm leading up to what amounts to the biggest high stakes election in the history of this country? And even no matter who wins, is it going to be calm after that, or is it going to be more chaos?